이번 주에도 돌아온 하프앤하프의 정태웅입니다. 반갑습니다.
And I'm Jeep. Welcome to Half and Half. And we have a bunch of guests here today. It's going to be fun.
네, 맞아요. 우리의 작고 소중한 팟캐스트에 네 명이 다 화면을 비집고 들어왔습니다.
It's our first time doing 4 people on this podcast, but I guess on your other podcasts you've done 4 people before, like All Things
맞아요.
Korean. Yeah. Well, I guess we should do introductions. Although George and Katrina, you've both been on this podcast many times. Or actually, George, you've only been one time actually. But yeah.
Yes. 네.
So go ahead and introduce yourself just in case people don't know you.
네. 안녕하세요. 저는 정우용이라고 합니다. 저는 저도 퀘스트 언플레이드라는 팟캐스트를 진행하고 있고, 저는 이제 지프 형님과 인연으로 닿아서 지난번에도 저를 감사하게 불러주셔서 재밌게 녹화를 하고 갔고요. 제가 가끔 지금 헷갈리는데 영어를 쓰지 않고 한국말로 쓰는 게 좀 어색한 사람들도 있을 거예요. 왜냐면 제가 하도 영어를 쓰고 다녀서. 네, 그러다 최대한 재밌게 녹화해 보겠습니다. 불러주셔서 감사합니다.
Yeah. Last time when we had the 3 of us, we were trying to figure out how is it half and half when there's 3 people. So is it a third, or is it like, yeah, what? So now we have an even number. We can actually divide by 2. So this is great.
네, 그렇죠. 한 달에 한 번씩 나오시는 카트리나 님도 나오셨습니다.
Yeah, my name is Katrina, and I'm a guest here regularly, but not very often. So you may have seen me before.
네. 한 달에 한 번씩 나오시는데 카트리나가 사실은 제일 적극적인 구독자기도 해요. 네, 댓글도 제일 많이 달아주시고.
I try. Yeah.
네,
It's good for the algorithm. It's good for engagement.
맞죠.
Yeah.
그래서 이번 주제로 얘기할 때도 조지님이랑 꼭 같이 초대해서 얘기하고 싶다고 카트리나가 제안을 해줬어요.
Yeah. I really enjoyed the
그렇습니다.
podcast that the 3 of you did together. There was just lots of interesting stuff there. And AI is... So we're talking about AI today. I think you sort of mentioned that.
No, but go ahead.
이렇게 하면 돼요.
네. 누군가는 말하면 되죠, 뭐.
Yeah.
네.
So I think it's come up as a potential topic a number of times, and all of us have been like, I don't really know anything about AI, so maybe not, but maybe if we can find an expert. And then I think we kind of decided to talk about it even though nobody's an expert, is my conclusion.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it, is none of us are experts with AI. We're all, I guess, I want to say we're users of AI to the degree that I guess everybody is at this point in modern society. But yeah, we're not all the most knowledgeable about it. We just have our own experiences that we can talk about related to that. So yeah.
맞아요. 저도 종종 카트리나랑 지프랑 얘기할 때 느낀 건 제가 AI를 사용하는 방식이랑 되게 다른 방식을 가지고 있더라고요.
You think you use it differently than we do? Is that what you mean?
그런 것 같아요.
Okay, interesting.
So that'll be
네.
cool to find out.
네, 그래서 그런 교집합과 그런 좀 다른 부분들을 나눠보는 것만으로 한 에피소드가 될 것 같습니다.
Cool.
네, 좋습니다.
Yeah, so let's talk about AI. I guess just to set expectations, one of the main things we want to talk about is how AI is right now in the present, in this day, like whether it's today or whether it's 5 days ago or whatever. But like, how are we using it in the current day, and what things have we used it for? I guess I'll just give one example since I'm talking right now. I'll start with my most boring example, just because I think that at least can lead to better things. So right now, the company where I work, we make games. I work at a video game company, and there's it's a very hot topic, I guess, of should game developers be using AI or not? And I don't know, George, you'll probably have a bunch to say about this too. But I guess I just want to say this, is that our company, we have company policies about can you use AI or not AI? And if you do, how do you use it or not use it? And so it's like very specific about when you use AI, it can only be for things that do not end up in a final product in a customer-facing sense. So you can use it for research purposes or to like help you understand certain things, but you shouldn't use it to create products, basically. Like the final product should not include the output of AI. The other main thing is that what was I going to say? I lost my train of thought. AI. Right. You are not allowed to use it unless you've gone through specific like AI training, which is a very corporate thing, but you have to like go through like, a questionnaire and some like sets of like, videos or whatever that explains here's what AI is, and, here's, what can go wrong if you use it the wrong way. And, can you like answer these questions in a quiz and prove that you have some knowledge about it before you're even given access to it? Basically, in our company, we don't have access until we've done that. So there's my really bad example of how we're using AI right now.
So that makes me really interested to hear from George, because you're also working in a company that is centered around gaming. And do you have are there any guardrails basically around how you guys are expected to or allowed to use AI?
그리고 조지님이 하시는 퀘스트 언플레이드에서 되게 많은 게임 개발자님들이랑 얘기를 많이 나누시잖아요.
네네네.
또 그런 거 보면서도 또 생각하는 게 좀 있으실 것 같은데.
네, 그래서 저희 같은 경우는 어쨌든 커뮤니티 플랫폼이다 보니까 저희가 뭐 직접적으로 저희 이제 뭐 CTO님을 제외하고는 다들 이제 뭐 개발을 하시질 않고 이제 어떻게 보면 그 커뮤니티를 운영하고 뭐 이제 마케팅하거나 그 커뮤니티를 어떻게 하면 이제 사람들을 모으고 재밌는 컨텐츠를 들을 수 있는지 이런 거에 대해서 고민하는 편인데. 저희도 따로 이제 AI 관련해서 뭐 폴리시 같은 건 없고 저희는 이제 지프 형님처럼 큰 회사가 아니기 때문에 저희는 뭐 작은 스타트업이기 때문에 아무래도. 근데 저희는 어쨌든 최대한 컨텐츠가 이제 오리지널한 컨텐츠를 만들려고 노력을 하기 때문에, 왜냐하면은 어디에나 있는 컨텐츠를 만들게 되면 저희 커뮤니티의 어떤 강점이나 이런 것들이 좀 줄어들기 때문에 저희도 이제 리서치 같은 거 할 때는 저 개인적으로는 리서치 같은 거 할 때는 좀 쓰는 편이긴 해요. 왜냐하면은 뭐 구글에 쳐도 되지만 뭐 구글이나 뭐 다른 데 쳐도 되지만 아무래도 그런 시간적인 것은 줄여주기도 하고, 그리고 뭐 제가 특정한 어떤 자료를 찾고 싶은데 거기에 대한 뭐 키워드나 이런 거에 대해서 좀 뭐 일반적인 AI들이 잘 잡아주니까. 근데 그걸 이제 제가 그 검증을 해야죠. 읽어보고 이게 진짜로 맞는 어떤 그 credible-한 소스에서 나오는 어떤 자료인지 아닌지 그런 것들은 다 검증을 해야 하고.
Yeah.
그리고 이제 아까 지프 형님이 말씀하셨던 것처럼 이제 그 게임 업계에서 사실 AI가 진짜 그 뜨거운 감자예요. 사실은. 왜냐하면 이게 진짜 이 게임 개발자뿐만 아니라 게이머들한테도 이게 사실 되게 반반인 주제거든요. 왜냐하면 이게 뭐 게이머들 입장에서도 사실 뭐 아이디어만 좋으면 되지 뭐 에셋이나 이런 거는 사실 그냥 AI로 만들어도 된다라는 사람도 있고, 그에 반면에 AI에 A만 들어가도 이 게임은 절대 안 산다, 나는 이 게임 사지도 않고 쳐다보지도 않겠다라는 사람도 있기 때문에 이게 정말 호불호가 많이 갈리는 편인데, 이제 제가 봤을 때 한국에는 조금 그래도 더 오픈돼 있는 것 같고, 이게 뭐 AI가 있더라도 조금 이제 뭐 재밌으면 됐지 약간 이런 느낌인 것 같은데, 특히 북미 같은 경우는 진짜 그게 센시티브한 이 주제인 것 같아요. 이 토픽이 진짜 너무 이 센시티브하고, 이제 왜냐하면 이제 뭐 일단 가장 큰 건 이제 아무래도 개발자분들 특히 그 AI가 상용화되면서 그 일자리에 대한 이제 민감한 이 것들이 많아졌잖아요. 왜냐하면은 뭐 게임 개발자 같은 경우 제가 이거 뉴스레터에도 썼는데 뭐 킹이라는 이제 게임 회사가 있죠. 그 캔디 크러쉬 만드는 회사. 거기에서 이제 어떤 일화가 있었냐면 이제 그 레벨들 계속 만들어야 되잖아요. 게임 그 캔디 크러쉬 뭐 레벨 게임에는 그 다음 레벨이라고 이런 것들 만들어야 되는데, 그 레벨 디자이너가 그 AI를 트레이닝 시켰는데 트레이닝 시키자마자 이제 잘렸어요. 그 AI를 쓰기 위해서. 그러니까 AI가 대체된 거죠, 어떻게 보면. 그러니까 자기가 자기의 직업을 자기를 fire할 수 있게 하는 AI를 트레이닝 시킨 거예요, 어떻게 보면.
Right. You're training your own replacement basically,
그러니까,
which is
그렇죠,
it's so
그렇죠.
frustrating. Yeah, I mean, yeah, like it's hard to understand sometimes when you like when I'm working with AI, like, am I doing something that's speeding me up? Is it slowing me down? Or am I training my replacement? Like, it's hard to know which of those three things you're
그렇죠.
doing sometimes. So,
네, 맞아요. 맞는 말이에요.
So the people that I hang out with, programmers that I hang out with, there was a lot of fear for a long time about people losing their jobs, and people have been losing their jobs, and they've been blaming it on AI. But from people that I know that are inside of big companies, it sounds more like the companies are using AI as an excuse to get rid of people. Like they need to get rid of a lot of what they're calling dead weight, like people who haven't really been contributing. And so AI was kind of a good excuse to really cut numbers a lot. And so it's unclear as to whether or not AI actually was the cause of it.
yeah, I think that's a decent assessment. The thing that's also hard to know or understand is if those cuts that they're doing, like, end up being good in the long term for those companies or not. Like, I don't know if they're making good or bad strategic decisions, basically, but I kind of see what you're saying, that it is, AI is sometimes more of an excuse for letting a bunch of people go, and it isn't necessarily like directly a replacement. Like, yeah.
I was also seeing some research. So people I hang out with who are programmers and who care about this have been looking at some of the research that has come out where programmers feel like AI is making them more productive. But if you look at the numbers, they actually spend more time on the work when they use AI. And so I thought that was kind of interesting as well.
Yeah. Do you mean that in the sense that they're using AI to do some of the programming itself, or do you just mean like in terms of research? Okay.
Yeah, so not research. It's when they actually use the AI. So it might be Claude Code or it might be Cursor. Like there are a bunch of different products that will write code for you.
Yeah.
When they actually use AI to write production code, often it goes wrong in ways that are different from how it usually goes wrong when you write your code yourself. Right. And so you spend a lot of time trying to clean up and debug and sort of keep things under control. And so there are people who are very good at using AI to write code, like in very controlled environments, but most people are not so good at it, and they waste a lot of time trying to like deal with the fallout of having used it.
I see. Yeah. So saying controlled environments, it's like it makes me think of, I have a friend who's not a programmer, who's never done programming. He works in like industrial equipment, like assessment, like he goes into factories and makes sure that their equipment is working properly. And he had basically some piece of equipment, he described it to me, that like measures the heat of something over time, and it shows you what the heat is. But it didn't have a way to like graph that information of like over a long period of time. He had to have like a separate thing to monitor it, basically. And he used some, I'm not sure which programming system he had set up, but he had some way where he basically, told AI, hey, I need a phone app, and I need my phone to connect to this random piece of industrial equipment via USB. And it has this heat output. I want you to save that data over time and then be able to output a PDF, basically. And he said it took him around 20 hours to get a program that did what he wanted. And to me, I was like, if you asked me to do that, because I don't know anything about like phone apps or this specific piece of USB equipment interface or whatever, that would take me a few weeks probably just to get started. If you found somebody who was an expert on doing this, they could do it in less than 20 hours. But the fact that he could do it on his own by himself is like, it's just crazy to me. And so there's some programming contractor somewhere who does like one-off projects who didn't get the job to do that, I guess. Right. So I wonder if it's affecting that market more than like companies that have like lots of programmers within it. I don't know.
So that seems likely because again, the research says that using AI to write code in very small environments, like small code bases, like single files or just a few files, works a lot better. Once you have a lot of files, a big code base, it works not so good.
Yeah, it's about that constraint. It was very specific, small problem, and the things that could go wrong, like if you're making, like, for example, some networked application that people have login information and stuff like that, then you have to be very scared about what code it's producing and what vulnerabilities it has. So yeah.
So I'm really curious to go back to what George was talking about with these the gamers themselves who don't like AI. Like, are there specific things about it that they don't like? Or what are they complaining about basically?
그러니까 그게 이제 사실 정확하게 그들의 힘들고 마음을 알 수는 없지만 제 생각에는 일단 AI, 그러니까 뭐 한국말로 치자면 AI가 묻으면 자기들은 일단 싫은 것 같아요. 일단 거부감, 일단 AI 전반적인 일단 거부감이 있는 것 같고 뭐 그래서 이제 제가 그 번지라는 이제 게임 회사가 있는데 뭐 지프 형님 아시겠지만 거기 이제 마라톤이라는 지금 이제 큰 프로젝트가 있어요. 거기에 뭐 first person shooter인데
The Halo is their biggest game that you probably have heard of, but yeah, they do a lot of stuff since then. Yeah.
네, 맞아요. 그래서 그 마라톤이라는 이제 자기들의 큰 프로젝트가 있는데 거기에서 이제 뒷배경에 지나가는 무슨 약간 그러니까 맵의 뒤에 지금 배경이 이렇게 짧게 있는 그 부분에 AI로 제너레이티드 된 어떤 글귀가 있었는데 그것까지 찾아내서 사람들이 이건 AI다. AI로 만들어서 이건 반대한다라는 사람 있을 정도거든요. 그러니까 이게 진짜 그 작은 진짜 그냥 싹 지나가는 그 배경에서조차도 AI가 묻으면 일단 거부감이나 반감을 가지는 거예요.
Yeah.
이런 이제 AI 싫어하시는 게이머 분들은.
So this isn't the whole thing, but I'll throw in this aspect of it just because maybe this helps explain some of the problem. Is I remember a time when games were mostly sold in stores on discs or on cartridges even. And so there was a manufacturing cost and there was a shipping cost associated with creating a game in addition to the development cost. But when games started becoming more digital, like you would download it online, there was this expectation within the gaming community for a while that the cost of manufacturing and shipping is no longer a thing. So the games should cost that much less because what I'm buying does not have a physical component. There's no printed manual, there's no things. So there was like a lot of, this is a long time ago, but there was some anger within the gamer community of like, where's that cost savings? Like they're producing this for less cost. Why am I not getting that back? And so I think there can be a similar sentiment with AI where a lot of companies are saying, hey, this is going to save us so much time and money. And then gamers are saying, okay, where's the cost savings? We're not getting that. And so I think that maybe is part of the argument or the anger that's coming out of that community. There's also the artistic aspect, which is a separate thing. But yeah.
네, 그리고 이제 그 스팀에서도 이제 그 규정을 바꿔서 이제 AI로 생성된 어떤 게 들어가 있으면 거기에 이제 적도록 만들어놨어요. 이제 스팀도 AI generated 뭐 컨텐츠가 있다라고 무조건 규정으로 바꿔놨어요. 그래서 사람들이 이걸 봤을 때 이게 실제로 뭔가 AI를 썼는지 아니면 안 썼는지. 근데 이제 이거를 만약에 안 썼다고 했는데 뭔가 쓴 게 나오면 이제 엄청나겠죠. 그에 대한 이제 네거티브한 이 반응이.
That's true. So the requirement is that you're supposed to disclose what AI you've used to develop your game. And when companies fail to do that, either intentionally or by mistake, let's just give the benefit of the doubt and assume it's always a mistake. Gamers won't necessarily believe it was an honest mistake and, are like, oh, they're lying to us, basically. And so there's a lot of distrust along with that as well, where they can feel like they've been tricked, essentially.
그 조진님도 게임을 꽤 많이 하시는 편은 아니에요?
제가 원래 게임을 많이 했는데요.
네,
많이는 못하고 이제 조금씩 하는데 이게 제가 팟캐스트를 하다 보니까 이제 거기에 나오시는 분들의 게임은 조금씩 하는 편이고 그 외에는 사실 제가 또 딸을 키우고 있다 보니까 이제 거의 뭐 컴퓨터에 앉아서 게임할 시간은 거의 없다고 보시면 되고 뭐 이제 딸이 잘 때 할 수 있는데 제가 보통 먼저 잠이 들죠. 딸을 재우다가 제가 잠이 들기 때문에 그래서 이제 보통 모바일 게임을 좀 많이 하는 편이에요. 그래서 이제 출퇴근하면서 라이트하게 하고 아니면 이제 게임 플레이를 제가 어쨌든 뭐 기사도 쓰고 이제 게임에 대해서 많이 알아야 되니까 거기에 대한 게임 플레이를 보거나 뭐 트레일러를 많이 보거나 그런 컨텐츠를 접하지만 제가 직접적으로 하는 건 이제 뭐 행사 갔을 때는 좀 할 수 있죠. 제가 미디어 행사나 이런 데 갔을 때는 이제 플레이를 해야 되니까 그 외에는 이제 현재는 옛날만큼 많이 못 하고 있어요.
그렇구나. 아, 물어본 이유가 그러니까 다른 사람들 반응 말고 그냥 지금 여기 있는 사람들은 만약에 내가 플레이하는 게임 중에 AI가 있다면 AI로 만든 게 있다면 좀 어떤 기분이 드는지 궁금해서 사실 저는 그렇게 별 생각은 안 들거든요.
예, 저도 사실 뭐 그냥 AI가 조금 보이면 이제 뭐 뭐야 여기는 약간 그런가. 그러니까 이 게임 전체를 AI로 만든 게 아니라면 뭐 어떤 작은 부분을 썼겠죠. 뭐 에셋을 만들거나 아니면 여기 뭐 플레이스홀더를 만들거나 이런 걸 썼으면 사실 그게 큰 스토리에 지장을 주지 않는다면 사실 뭐 크게 그렇게까지 저도 반감은 없어요. 그냥.
Yeah. So I mean, it's interesting when you say that you don't really think about it, Taeyong, because like, it does make me think that maybe the vast majority of people don't really think about where the things that they buy come from. Like that's just not a thing that they think about generally. And any of like the backlash or like sort of the hot topic parts of it is more within like a vocal minority of the people who engage with it like very, very closely. And so, yeah, I don't know. Like, I think that maybe most people don't really give much thought to it.
그렇죠.
Yeah.
그럼 뭐 지프님이랑 카트리나님은 AI가 뭐 들어가 있는 게임은 상관없나요? 플레이한다 해도?
You're asking if the games that I play are developed using AI or not, or if I care? Is that
아니
what you're
그냥
asking?
만약에 뭐 어떤 새로운 게임을 이제 봤는데 여기 AI가 뭐 인터레스팅해서 이제 살려고 했는데 여기 뭐 AI를 썼다고 이제 뭐 디스클로즈 되어 있으면 그 게임 플레이를 하셨을 때 뭐 크게 상관이 없는지 아니면은 AI가 있으니까 좀 약간 이
Yeah.
색안경을 끼고 보게 되는지.
I mean, it's basically. I'm trying to think of how to explain how I feel about it. Usually, I think of it more of a design perspective where I'm thinking about what does this add to the game. It's not about like how can we do the things we've done before more efficiently. It's more about like, is there some way that we can utilize this to make new types of games that haven't existed before? But I think in terms of the games I've played that have come out that have AI as maybe even a prominent feature, like that, like it does not exist without AI. They're interesting experiments, and I like I like try to think about like, you know, what are they trying to achieve and is it working? And the answer is sort of like they're doing something interesting. It's not good, but it's like it feels like it's leading somewhere. Like maybe somebody will figure out a better way to use this thing. And you know that's happened in games for forever. Like you know any new feature, whether it's technical or whatever. Sort of, I'll give just you know a simple example. Like cell shading was a concept that you know came into games a couple 2 decades ago or whatever. But then like the first few examples of it were not super well done, and it took a lot of iteration before people felt like, oh, this actually adds a lot of value to the game and looks really cool, and you know things like that. And I think maybe AI is a similar thing.
Well, it's similar to how when games started appearing on phones, like at the start, it really was just a desktop game that was smushed into a smaller size. And then later people realized, oh, but this phone, it's always with you and there's GPS. And so now we could use the knowledge about where you are to integrate that into a game. And so you end up with things like Pokemon Go or like other things that have geocaching. And so it just takes a while to figure out what this new thing actually is and how it can add something new rather than just try to do the same thing in a smaller space or a faster time.
Yeah, that's a great example. Yep.
저는
Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
저는 오픈월드 게임을 되게 좋아하거든요. 막 넓은 세상에서 여러 NPC와 여러 퀘스트를 할 수 있는. 근데 언젠가는 그런 오픈월드의 NPC들이 AI로 되어 있는 게임이 나오길 바라고 있어요. 저는.
Yeah. Do you mean the things that they say, like their actual, like what?
그
Is that-
지금의 오픈월드 게임에서
Yeah.
NPC랑 하는 대화가 좀 한정되어 있잖아요.
Yeah.
그래서 어떤 선택지에 대답을 하면 어떤 결과가 있고 그런 공략이 있잖아요.
Right.
근데 그런 게 없는 게임이 있으면 좀 좋겠어요.
I see.
그러니까 사실상 온라인 게임인데 그 NPC의 역할을 사람이 아니라 컴퓨터가 할 수 있는 거죠. 아니, 상대방의 역할을.
Mhm.
네.
음.
언젠간 그런 게 나오지 않을까.
뭐 그런 게임들 있기는 해요. 예를 들어서 뭐 제 친구 뭐 하는 게임 있는데 뭐 예를 들어서 그 RPG 게임인데, 그러니까 MMORPG 게임인데 저만 사람이고 나머지는 다 AI예요. 같이 있는 거기 있는 플레이어들이 다 AI. 뭐 그런 게임도 있기는 있어요. 그게 뭐 니시하죠. 사실 그게 막 엄청 큰 장르라기보다는.
좋습니다. 그
Okay. So
그
I actually have
네네.
another question for you, Tae. Is
네.
I guess like just getting away from games a little bit as a topic. Like what are you using AI for? Like in your daily life, have you used it for certain things or like what purposes?
아, 그 사실 원래 그게 오늘 얘기하려고 했던 주제잖아요. 근데 좀 너무 멀리 와서 그냥 아예 주제를 바꿀까 생각을 하고 있었는데 아무튼 예, 그 잠깐 원래 주제로 돌아가서 얘기를 하자면
Mm-hmm.
저는 좀 많이 사용하는 편이거든요.
Mm-hmm.
일단은 그 저는 뭐 가벼운 것부터 얘기를 하자면
Mm-hmm.
저는 요즘이 아니라 몇 달째 챗GPT를 프로 버전으로 사용하고 나서부터 어린아이가 된 기분인데
Mm-hmm.
왜 어린아이가 된 기분이냐면 막 궁금한 거 다 부모님한테 물어보잖아요. 저건 뭐야? 저건 왜 저래? 이렇게
Mm-hmm.
그냥 버스 타고 길 가다가 그 뭐 간판이나 간판이나 광고를 보고 궁금한 게 생기면 AI한테 저거는 왜 저래? 이렇게 물어보기도 해요.
I see. And do you just treat it like a conversation with the AI where you ask more questions, or is it one question, one answer? Like, what's your expectation?
보통 한 가지 물어보면 한 가지 답을 하는데
Mm-hmm.
그 챗GPT가 대답을 하면서 이거에 관해서도 알고 싶어? 이렇게 추천을 해주거든요.
That's why I don't use it.
네, 근데 대체로 그 추천이 제 마음에 와닿지는 않아서
Mm-hmm.
그냥 원하는 것만 알면은 대화가 끝나는데
Mm-hmm.
그거 말고도 저는 자잘한 아이디어를 되게 많이 떠올리는 사람이에요.
Mm-hmm.
그래서 어떤 아이디어가 떠오르면 이 아이디어 어때? 이렇게 얘기하고 그리고 뭐 이런 가능성이 있고 뭐 이렇게 보완하면 좋겠네요. 이러면 그거를 막 티키타카를 해요. 핑퐁을 계속해서
Mm-hmm.
한 3-4시간 대화하고 나면 제안서가 하나 만들어져요.
Wow. So
그래서
okay, I'm
예.
super curious about this. When you say that you would ask the AI if this is a good idea or not, like what does a conversation like that actually look like?
예를 들면 어떻게 무슨 예가 있을까? 제가 그 찌프랑 같이 만들고 싶다고 한 그 게임이 보드 게임이랑 비슷한 게임이에요. 그 원래 있는 게임을 조금 변형한 게임인데 그러면 게임 그 챗GPT랑 대화의 시작을 너 원래 있는 이 게임 오리지널 이 게임 잘 알아? 이렇게 물어봐요. 그러면은 뭐 이건 이러한 게임이고 어떻게 하는 게임입니다. 그 더 알고 싶은 게 있나요? 이렇게 하거든요. 그러면 내가 이거를 변형해서 이렇게 만들 아이디어가 떠올랐는데 그 너가 보기엔 어때? 이렇게 물어봐요.
Yeah.
그러면-
So
네.
you can basically take the rules of an existing game, make some changes to them, and then like sort of test those out in a live environment. Like you can kind of play it back and forth with the AI a little bit,
맞아요.
or even change the rules on the fly, I guess.
네네. 이건 보드 게임이라 가능한 거긴 한데 아무튼 그래서 그걸 만들면 사람들이 이 게임을 재밌어 할까? 이렇게 물어보기도 하고 이 아이디어가 정말 좋은 아이디어면 왜 이 아이디어로 이미 게임이 나오지 않았을까? 이런 것도 물어보고 네,
So-
그 여러 질문을 던져봐요.
Yeah. So does ChatGPT ever tell you that your idea is bad?
한 번도 없어요.
Yeah. So that's what worries me.
아니 그게 저도 이거 진짜 웃긴데 저도 챗GPT를 좀 쓰는 편인데 항상 제가 막 뭐 저 챗GPT한테 뭐 질문 같은 걸 좀 많이 하는 편인데 뭐 이러이러한 걸 어때? 그렇게 해서 하면은 뭐 얘가 답을 주잖아요. 뭐 이러이렇게 해보세요. 그러면 근데 그렇게 하는 거 아니지 않아? 그러면 당신이 맞습니다. 어쩌고
맞아요.
저쩌고. 그 항상 제가 말하는 대로 와요. 이게.
맞아요.
그래서 저도 100% 신뢰를 할 수 없는 거예요. 그가 말하는 것을.
Yeah, I feel
So
like
the thing-
you have to sort of add that into your prompt. You'd say, "Hey, I have this idea for a game, but use a very critical eye and like, give me, strong criticism if you think that some
Yeah.
like I mean, I don't know if like you'll get a useful answer, but then at least it would be like primed to like give you some pushback or something."
Yeah. Yeah, I typically,
okay.
when I'm trying to dig into something that I'm unsure about, I'll typically say, okay, and now ask me clarifying questions. Ask me, like, challenge my ideas so that I'm challenged to actually think through things more. Yeah.
저도 그렇게 질문들을 하면서 그것들을 좀 정리한 다음에 이제 레드팀 아이디어를 얘기해라. 그리고 블루팀 이야기를 또 해라. 이렇게 하거든요. 그러면은 결국엔 블루팀이 이겨요. 결국엔.
Interesting. Do you ever use AI for like creating? I'm trying to think of how to say this. So, so sometimes when I'm giving somebody like a birthday card or something, I'll like draw a picture on the card or something like that. And there's of course like online cards where you can create a greeting card that says happy birthday or whatever. Do you ever use AI to create images as sort of like a personalized gift for somebody, if that makes any sense? Like, do you use it to make personalized images for any reasons?
조진님은 그런 적 있나요? 없을 것 같은데.
저는 이제 저희 같은 경우 이제 디자이너분이 계신데 그래서 디자이너분이
업무적으로.
거의 대부분을 일을 하시는데 제가 그냥 개인적으로 저희 마스코트가 있어요. 귀여운 고양이 마스코트가 있는데 그 고양이 마스코트로 약간 뭔가 저희의 어떤 피처를 좀 홍보하고 싶은데 이걸 약간 이렇게 변형해서 좀 만들고 싶을 때 그걸 좀 쓰긴 써요. 그러니까 예를 들어서 뭐 이 고양이를 가지고 뭐 이런 상황을 만들어줘 이런 식으로는 쓰는데 정말 어려워요. 제가 원하는 이 아이디어까지 가는 데가 한 번에 절대 안 나오고
Right.
뭐가 안 맞고 막 이것만 바꿔줘 하면 모든 걸 다 바꿔버리고 여기서 뭐 A, B, C가 있는데 뭐 A, B는 마음에 드는데 C가 마음에 안 들면
Right.
진짜 제발 챗GPT야 A랑 B는 그대로 두고 C만 제발 바꿔줘 부탁이야 부탁해
Right.
10번 해도 다 바꿔요 그냥 갑자기 A, B, C, D, E, F가 나와요 갑자기.
Right.
So there
Yeah,
are other models that are better at adjusting single things in images.
Yeah.
I haven't used them much, so I can't really speak to it. But I do know that on. Are you familiar with Replicate? Replicate.com. It's a site that gives programmers easy access to lots of different models. And they have a playground, so you don't actually have to program to use it. You can go to the playground and try out lots of different models, and it's really cheap. You only pay for the usage that you do, so you can do a bunch of experiments, and it'll be like less than $1. So I would recommend trying out other models if you're thinking about working with images.
Okay.
Nice.
네.
Yeah, I've definitely had
네.
the same experience that George has had, where like, I'm trying to get something specific, like some specific type of image, and I keep going in circles where I'm like, okay, like that, but change this color, and then you get you changed the color, but now one other thing that you requested is gone, and you just keep like going in a circle, like please do this. And like I'll get weird things where like, so for example, so I was trying to generate an image of a tiger doing something, and the tiger in the picture is wearing pants or clothes, and I'm like, no, please like do the same thing, but the tiger should not be wearing clothes. And then it'll be like, I'm sorry, I can't generate that image. That sounds like it's very adult if you're removing the pants off a tiger. And it's like, no, but you don't understand. Tigers don't wear pants. Like, so like I'll start getting that kind of pushback where it's just like, no.
네. 수수께끼 푸는 느낌이에요. 수수께끼 약간 스무고개를 하거나
맞아요.
수수께끼를 자꾸 계속해서 반복하는 느낌.
That's hilarious.
That's
네.
funny.
그 원래 질문에 대한 저의 대답은 그러니까 뭐 다른 사람한테 선물로 줄 카드나 이런 거에 AI를 저는 영영 안 쓸 것 같은데요.
Okay. I guess maybe it was a bad example. I'll try and explain the reason I asked that, and maybe this will ring more true.
네.
So, there was the Ghibli trend for a while. I don't know if it's still going,
네, 네.
but
네.
one of my friends, their partner, works at Microsoft and had access to like the better version of it, basically. And she was like, "Hey,
right.
send me a couple pictures of you and your wife, and I'll Ghiblify them." And I'm like, "Okay, let's." I was just curious. I'm like, "Okay, let's see how it looks." And what came out of it, like, I mean, it looked really cool. I was like, "Wow." And my wife ended up using that as like her avatar in whatever chat programs we use. And like, I mean, it looks like a really cool like avatar because it looks like her, but it's slightly cartoonified. And I was like, okay, that's interesting because she's not going to draw that picture. She's not an artist, and I'm not going to draw that picture because I'm not an artist. And you're not going to go commission an artist, especially not from Ghibli Studio, to draw that picture for you. So it's like, it's enabled this thing that wasn't really possible. But I don't know. Like, I would consider that a case where you created something personal. She's not selling it. She's not, using it for any commercial purpose. It's just like a personal, just like, oh, okay, now I have this avatar thing. So I don't know. I don't know if that makes sense. That's kind of what I was thinking about.
거기에 대해서 저도 생각했는데 그 지프 형처럼 저도 저희 딸을 이제 디즈니를 너무 좋아해서 저희 딸을 디즈니화 시켜줬어요. 공주처럼 꾸며줘 이렇게. 근데 저도 아까 지프 형님 저도 뭐 아티스트가 아니고 저희 와이프도 아티스트가 아니기 때문에 근데 그 이미지를 이제 만들어서 딸한테 보여주니까 너무 좋아하더라고요. 근데 그래서 저를 그걸로 저는 이제 프로파일 같은 걸 하는 것도 아니고 뭐 어디 뭐 카톡 프로필을 한 것도 아니고 그냥 딸한테 한 번씩 보여줄 때
right.
그냥 보여주거나 아니면 뭐 나중에 프린터해서 뭐 약간 컬러북처럼 만들어서 주거나 할 수 있으니까 그런 거 같은 경우는 사실 이제 할 때 되게 유용했던 것 같아요.
뭔가 좀 더 액티비티 느낌이네요. 선물도 선물이긴 한데. 근데 저는 한 번도 저나 뭐 제 가족으로 그거를 지브리 그림으로 바꾸지 않아서 네 사실 저는 좀 그런 거를 안 좋아하는 스타일이라
Yeah.
네, 그래서 그 지브리 유행하고 나서 또 한때 그것도 나왔었어요. 조선 시대 화풍으로 그려줘 해서
Sure.
약간 뭐 옛날 화풍으로 그리는 것도 유행했었고 뭐 여러 가지 유행이 했었어요. 그 지브리가 나오고부터. 네, 그래서 뭐 서버 과부하가 걸렸다는 이야기가 있던데. 네, 오픈 AI. 네.
근데 지프가 그거 물어보고 나니까
Yeah.
제가 아까 이해 못했던 그 게임 플레이어들의 그 AI 묻은 게임에 대한 거부감이 좀 이해될 것 같기도 하네요.
Oh, now you understand it?
네, 물론 그들의 마음을 잘 모르겠지만 이런 거랑 비슷한 건가 싶은
Okay.
느낌.
I see.
네.
Okay.
네, 맞아요.
It gives you that kind of weird, slightly creepy feeling, I guess. Okay.
네, 그리고 게임은 이제 파는 거니까 상업화하기 위해서 하는 거니까 어쨌든 거기에 이제 AI를 쓰는 거에 대한 반감이 있을 수는 있죠. 그래서 사실 그거에 대한 거는 뭐 자기들의 개인적인 오피니언이니까 뭐 저희가
그렇죠.
네, 할 수는 없고.
But yeah, I don't know. I guess just to go back to programming a little bit, I was thinking about like one of the most frustrating things about AI in terms of, so if I was using it like in a game or something like that, is that it's very non-deterministic. Like you can give it the same input and get an infinite number of outputs basically. And as a programmer, that's like really, really hard to wrap my head around because we usually have the expectation that if you give a specific input, you'll always get the same output because then it's easy to understand and debug and do things. But yeah, that non-deterministic aspect and the fact that like if you have a game that uses AI for content, for example, that that same game, a month later could be giving different outputs than it did a month before, like during development or after release or whatever. You can't you can't have an expectation for exactly how it's going to work, and that's like really frustrating. But yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to think like just has there been other cases not as a programmer, but in daily situations where I was like, oh man, AI did this useful thing for me, and now it doesn't do that anymore, and it's like, just frustrating to use because it doesn't work how I expect. I don't know.
So I've actually run into this non-deterministic thing quite a lot because for the past 6 months I've been using it for my own language learning in a very, very narrow way. So for example, if I'm reading a novel and there's a word I don't know, I've written a program that will send the sentence and that word to AI and say, is this word part of an idiom? If it's part of an idiom, send me back the part of the sentence that is the idiom. And then I ask the AI again, here's this idiom, give me back the normalized version of this idiom. And then I'll ask again, okay, here's an idiom, explain the idiom to me using, comprehensible language, make it so that it's easy to understand the examples, like use lots of day-to-day examples, use common concrete words, don't use academic terms or abstract terms, like a lot of things like that, and then explain the idiom to me. But like getting the prompts right was really tricky. And so what I ended up doing was I had about 100 different sentences, and about half of them have idioms in them and half of them don't. But some of those that are not idioms, they might have like things that feel like fixed expressions. It's just that if you understand all the words, then you understand what it means. Whereas with idioms, it's like even if you understand the words, you don't really understand what it means because it means something completely different.
When you say you have some that have idioms and some that don't, is that like a unit test or is that something else?
Yeah, so it's just the test cases. I've collected about 100 sentences from the books that I've been reading. And for about half of them, I made sure that they have an idiom. And for the other half, they don't. And then I put together a test that will literally ask, with this prompt, ask the AI about every single one of them and store the result. And then I look, how many percentages, like how many times when I expected it to be right, was it actually right? And when was it wrong? And were they what they call false positives or false negatives? Like when it was wrong, why was it wrong? Because it might be wrong mostly by saying, oh, this is an idiom, but it's not. Or it might be saying, no, this is not an idiom, but when it really is. And so what I did was I would change my prompt and run all 100 test cases. And then just look at the statistics, change my prompt again until I was reasonably happy with it. And I really had to work really hard with myself. Like it was hard as a programmer to accept that it's not going to be right all the time, but it's going to be good enough for my use case. It's going to be good enough for my purposes.
Right.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah. There's I've also so Claude was one of the programming models, or not AI models that I used for a little bit. One of the interesting things about it was it would have a thing where in your prompt, you're not just saying what you want, but you're also specifying what format you want the result in. And you give an example of like, here's the expected format I want. And I found that it was pretty good at following the format. Like it would like actually like sort of follow the rules that I set up. But yeah, it felt like more than 2%. Like I would say almost 5% of the time, it would just like spit out something that I was like not expecting at all, like completely useless result. And I'd be like, but why? Please don't do this. So yeah, I don't know. That's interesting. I like the idea of though setting up test cases and be able to at least verify on your end that you're like getting some useful percentage of correct or not correct, so that you can have an expectation.
It also makes it easier to look at what went wrong when it did go wrong. Are there patterns in that? Because then maybe you can tweak the prompt, try it again.
That's cool.
역시 프로그래머 분들은 다르시군요. 개발자분들 저는 솔직히 말해서 저도 이제 대학교 때 마이너 했거든요, 컴퓨터 사이언스. 근데 정말 억지로 하면서 이것은 나의 길이 아니다. 이것은 나는 프로그래머의 피읍자도 진짜 내 DNA에 없다라고 생각했는데 역시 프로그래머 분들은 생각하는 게 다르군요.
달라요. 그리고 제가 생각했던 그 주제의 대화랑 엄청 다른 얘기들이 계속 나오고 있는 것 같아요. 전문가들의 AI 사용법 나눔 시간이 됐습니다.
네, 거의 뭐 준 전문가분들의
예.
Right.
But it's really
Uh,
odd. I don't think of myself as an expert a lot. Like I don't use AI a lot for programming. I'll look up in like oh, there's a thing and I don't want to go digging through the documentation, so I'll just ask AI and then I'll know where in the documentation to look. So I feel like I use it just to get over like the hardest part of the first step, and then once I'm going, I'm usually doing it on my own.
Yeah, similar here. Like a lot of programming languages share, they have a lot of similarities between them, but the differences are kind of like the structure, which we'd call syntax. It's kind of like the grammar of the, and also like the specific like commands that we'd use to do things. And some languages have like abilities or capabilities that other languages don't. And so, yeah, sometimes I'll use AI to kind of like, language that I'm unfamiliar, tell me like, how do I do this thing that I know how to do, but I don't know exactly which command I'm looking for. And I find it useful for that. So I actually, this just reminded me is that Taeyong, I think you're learning programming. Is that correct?
배웠었습니다. 6개월간
Oh, not anymore?
배웠었었고
Oh.
결국에는
아,
제가 그냥 챗GPT한테 시키는 게 더 빠르다는 걸 깨달았어요.
아,
그리고 절대 못 따라갈 거라는 것을 깨닫고
네.
네 챗GPT한테 해달라고 부탁하고 있습니다.
I see. Yeah, the reason I was asking though, because I had a friend who was in a college course for programming like last year, basically, and like I don't want to say shocked, but I was really surprised. Like the way that they were using AI to teach in that course was basically they were saying, as you're learning programming, use AI kind of as much as you want. Like you can kind of ask it to write programs for you. But but then I was trying to figure out like where's the part where you learn how to program. Like if you're just telling it do this program for me, like where's the part where you learn? And I think she like within a year eventually did learn the basics of programming. And I'm not saying she's like a professional programmer, but she like understood what she was supposed to learn. But it was like such a different approach than I was used to. I was kind of curious, like Taeyong, if you were using AI in your learning process or not, like if it was more traditional, like how like a long time ago, how we used to learn, I guess. So I don't know. I was just kind of curious.
저는 아직 진짜 수박 겉핥기로밖에 안 배워서.
Mm.
근데 사실 준비하고 있는 프로젝트 그 웹사이트가 있는데
Mhm.
그걸 기능적인 걸 완성했어요. 사실 지금
Mhm.
이제 디자인만 하면 돼요.
Mm.
That's really cool.
근데 그거를 전부 다 챗GPT가 써줬어요. 그 페이지가 꽤 크거든요.
Yeah.
근데 근데 진짜 약간은 따라가는 느낌이에요. 이게 뭘 하고 있고 어떤 게 어떤 기능을 하고 있는지 이해는 어렴풋이 할 수 있는 정도. 네, 그래서 뭐 에러가 떠도 콘솔에 에러가 뜨면 이게 뭐 대충 어떤 문제구나.
Right.
그 정도는 아는 수준이에요.
I see. Yeah, I think maybe that's where she learned the most is where, she would try to get AI to write most of her program, and then there was still problems, and you'd have to go debug and fix and solve all those problems. And that's like where the real like actual learning happens, where it's like, this isn't what I wanted, or it's doing something slightly different than was expected. So yeah, interesting.
제 생각에는 저는 뭐 딸을 키우고 있는 입장이니까
Mhm.
이제 앞으로 자라나는 아이들은 어떻게 보면은 코딩을 배우긴 하겠지만 어떻게 보면 AI를 어떻게 잘 활용할 수 있는지를 먼저 배울 것 같아요. 제 생각에. 어릴 때부터 이제 오히려 아예 어릴 때부터 이게 나온 이제 뭐 어떤 프로그램이고 이걸 어떻게 잘 조련을 하고 잘 써먹어야 우리가 원하는 거를 나올 수 있는지를 먼저 배울 것 같아요.
Yeah, so
맞아요.
I think one of the interesting things, so my sister's kids are also starting to use AI, and it's really interesting to try to help them understand what AI even is, because a lot of people seem to treat it like an oracle, like a magic thing that has all the answers. And I don't know. I think people will get a lot of bad results if they treat it that way.
Yeah.
이번 네.
Oh, go ahead. I didn't have anything. Go ahead.
아, 그 이번 주제 그에서 뭐 얘기할지 하면서 제가 잠깐 했던 얘기가
Mhm.
그 막 이 중에 아무도 심리 상담용으로 챗GPT 쓰는 사람 없죠? 이렇게 물어봤었잖아요.
Yeah.
Mhm.
근데 제 주변에 진짜 많거든요.
Mhm.
되게 많아요. 그것도 그 챗집 그 인공지능 그 LLM이 처음 나올 때는 다들 이해를 못했는데
Right.
Mhm.
나오고 조금 한 몇 달만 지나서 다들 그걸 엄청 좋아하고 달고 살게 됐어요.
Hmm.
That's really interesting.
제 생각에는 그 항상 블루 팀이 이기게 해주고 이게 맞는 거 아니야? 라면 이게 맞다고 해주고 그런 것의 극단에 있는 현상이라고 생각되는데
Mhm.
네, 그 아까 카트리나가 얘기한 그 오라클처럼 보는 거랑 좀 비슷한 부분도 있지 않을까 생각이 들어요.
Yeah.
What is that? Oraku? Sorry, I don't follow what that
Oracle.
is. Oracle. Sorry. That's the pronunciation in Korean, I guess.
아, 네.
오라클.
I didn't even pick it up. Okay, got
네,
it.
토종 한국 발음 아닙니까?
네.
오라클.
That's actually how we pronounce it in Norwegian as well. Worakke.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, this is the first time I've heard that. That's funny. Yeah. I don't know. It's also weird because like there's a lot of things where I guess when I talk to people about things that I think that I know, like, oh, I think I heard somewhere that blah 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 blah. Like, you know, I don't like fully know, and the the video or the article or the whatever where I may have heard that information, 5-10 years ago. Like I'm just kind of like I have a vague memory of this. I always try to like include how sure or unsure I am about the thing that I'm saying. And I feel like, AI is not very good at like saying like, here's this information, but I'm not really sure about this. Like it's just very, very confident. It feels like if you were forced into an interview for a job that you were very unqualified for, and you just had to start making up stuff on the spot and like, pretending that you know something. That's what it feels like the personality of AI is just like a pathological liar, just like, and sometimes it's right. Many times it's right, but there's a lot of times where you just like, are you very confidently right or are you very confidently wrong? So like, yeah, it's hard to know.
So there's one way that that I use AI that doesn't really have this problem at all. Like when I'm asking it about things, it'll make up answers. But one of the things that I like to do is if I have a lot of thoughts, but they're really messy, I'll just brain dump all the thoughts. And then I'll say, hey, AI, can you structure this and make it clean? And it does a great job. And because I'm the one who's thinking, I can look at it and say, oh, you totally messed up here. But usually it does a really good job with that type of work.
See.
Yeah.
I see. But since you like gave it all the data that you want it to work with, and
Yes.
you know what you want out of it, sort of, like you can do the evaluation on whether something was right or wrong, essentially.
Exactly. And so I think that's actually a pretty safe use of AI. Like there's someone I know who dictates into AI, uses AI to transcribe it, and then uses an LLM to reformat it to be like clean. And it's super, like it saves him a lot of time, but it's also a really safe use of AI because it's not making anything up. Like all of it comes from him.
It's interesting. Yeah. I have seen a similar thing where this is an approved company policy thing. It's allowed. So in Slack, which is just a chat program within companies, basically, sometimes like there'll be a very long thread where like there was 100 messages while you were at lunch, you came back and there's 100 messages. Like, oh no. You can basically say, hey, Claude, summarize this chat thread. And it'll be like, okay, so-and-so talked about this and this and this and this happened. And like within the space of a paragraph, you can like know, should I even care about reading this or not? Like at the very base level, at least I can have that information. I find that's pretty decent. The other thing that's fun is you can say, hey, please summarize this, but do it in the voice of George Costanza from Seinfeld. Like, and then like everybody at least can enjoy like the joke that comes out of it. So, yeah.
So this is actually something that there are teachers in the UK that use or there's a company that serves teachers in the UK. And the thing that is hard about giving feedback when you're a teacher is that you have to be so careful to not hurt the child's feelings. And so what this has enabled them to do is just note bullet points about what they want and then have AI make sure that it's said in a way that is kind. And so it's like, okay, the handwriting is terrible, but you make a good point. And the AI will be like, oh, well, blah, 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 blah. You made a very good point, and you maybe need to work a little bit on the legibility of your handwriting.
네. 그게 저도 이제 보통 그런 걸 쓰는 게 이제 데이터가 들어가면 AI는 데이터가 들어가고 제가 뭘 원하는지 알면은 진짜 세이프한 것 같아요. 왜냐면 저도 막 무슨 이메일 쓸 때 이메일 쓰다 보면 이제 이런 막 내용들을 막 쓰다 보면은 막 쓰다가 이거 조금 더 프로페셔널하게 쓰고 싶은데 이거 시간이 없거나 아니면 귀찮으면은 이제 AI한테 이거를 조금만 더 프로페셔널하게 다듬어 줄 수 있냐. 이런 식으로 하면 이제 AI가 자자자작 써주니까 거기서 제가 원하는 건 빼고 아니면은 이렇게 쓰지 말고 조금 더 카인드하게 써라 아니면은 마지막 부분이나 중간중간 제가 바꿀 수 있으니까 그런 거는 확실히 세이프한 것 같아요. 왜냐면 제가 제 이야기랑 제 생각을 다 넣었고 전달에 대한 내용 다 넣었고 얘가 그냥 슈르륵 이렇게 약간 잘 쉐킷쉐킷해서 촥 이렇게 결과를 딱 받아주면 오케이 이건 좋다 아니면 이건 별로다 하면 이제 패스하고 이런 거 쓸 때는 확실히 유용한 것 같아요. 시간을 많이 세이브해 주는 것 같아요.
그렇죠. 그 울타리를 잘 만들어 놔야 돼요.
네, 그렇죠.
네.
Yeah, having those safeguards of knowing exactly what's going into it makes it feel a lot more safe. That's
네, 맞아요. 맞는 것 같아요.
Yeah, knowing what's going in and also knowing that you're the one who's deciding whether or not it's good. Like
맞아요.
your taste, your judgment is being used here.
네. 근데 이제 안 읽고 이제 카피 앤 페이스트 하면 이제 큰일 나니까 항상 proofread 다시 읽어보고 오케이 this is good 하면 이제
그렇죠. 근데 참 여기에 4명이나 LLM 유저가 있지만 제 주위에서 듣는 얘들은 안 나오는 것들이 참 많은데 사실 4명 중에 2분이 다 프로그래머라 좀 그런 것 같기도 한데요. 보통 회사 보고서 제안서, 기획서, 수업 계획서 이런 거 보통 그런 서류 작업들.
Yeah, I've used it for documents. Like my friends are inviting someone from a different country and they need a letter for the embassy and they're like, can you help me? And I'm like, yes, I can. Dear ChatGPT, please, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
그런 것도 쓰는군요. 근데 그 프로그래밍 얘기할 때는 되게 엄격하게 사용의 범위를 딱 정하는 편이잖아요.
Yeah, it's very strict. Yeah.
네. 근데 그런 보고서 이런 서류 작업 그런 거는 아닌가 봐요.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I guess it can be a little bit. Yeah, it can. I'm trying to think how to say this. If I was to write that by hand in a not very clear way, not using AI, as long as the other person can understand what I'm trying to say and it communicates the information, then it's good enough. So I don't know. I guess using AI to do the basic format and outline, as long as I make sure that the most important information is correct, it's probably fine. Yeah. It's it's just annoying paperwork, I guess, if that makes sense.
Yeah, 맞아요.
Yeah.
So I've tried a lot of different apps. Like every time someone will be like, oh, there's this app that will give you comprehensible input for the language that you're learning, and I'll try it. And it's almost always garbage. I've never actually tried something that I liked. And part of what I feel is garbage is that it's asking AI to be creative without having very clear guardrails about how the creative process should work. And so it makes up these super really boring, insipid stories with no plot, with characters who are very uninteresting, who say things that are absolutely uninteresting. And it's it's not really worth my time. And so I've found that I use it a lot for my own language learning, but I don't use it through apps. I use it I made up my own rules for what I'm using AI for. And what I found is that AI is very, very good at telling me sort of the average of how people use a word. So if I'm wondering about a word in Korean, and I say, can you explain what the word means and give me day-to-day examples? It is really, really good at that. And part of that is because it's trained on it is the average. Like the way that these models are trained, it kind of squishes together and gives you the average. This is really good when you're explaining a word. It's really bad when you're making up a story. Like in a story, you don't want the sort of super average of everything in your story.
Right.
But when you're explaining a word, you do. Like how do what do most people mean when they say this? In what situations do most people use it? Like that's a really good usage of it, in my opinion.
I see. Yeah, I think so for that specific use case, often like if I'm looking up a word for Korean, I'll go to like Naver Dictionary and there'll be a list of it, literally thousands of examples of like, existing sentences. But the biggest problem I usually run into with that, this is maybe specific to Korean, but just because of the conjugation rules, a lot of times I'll have to search for that word with different conjugations, like several different times to find examples of sentences that use it in those different conjugations, just because it's doing like a direct string match, basically.
Right.
But using AI to create, several sentences using that word, you could just say, hey, and do it using several different conjugations. And then it would basically solve that problem for you. But I don't know.
Yeah.
I almost feel like that's something that Naver could solve. But yeah, like that is like a specific roadblock that I run into that AI could probably do better at.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or like if, for example, if there's a so here's something I run into for just another example. I'll have a specific verb that I'm looking up, but I want to know, can this verb be used in the context with this noun? Is that a common thing or not a common thing? And so I'll try to search for those two things together, but not really find example sentences. And so I'm like, am I not finding examples because they're not used together or because I'm not finding them? I don't know which. And that's another case I think maybe with AI, I could say, hey, these two words that they commonly use together can give me examples. And then it would either say yes or no. And I could mostly believe it.
Well, the thing is, if you ask it to give you, like, if there are common collocations,
Right.
give me some examples of those collocations. Now you can search Google with that specific collocation and you should get thousands of examples.
Oh, really? Okay.
그렇게 검증하면 되겠네요.
Yeah.
Good tip.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess I forgot to say this, but you just reminded me because you said Google. I honestly, like some of the times that I'm using AI as sort of a search replacement is I feel that like Google itself has just gotten worse and worse over the last few years. And like there's probably a bunch of different reasons for that, but I kind of feel like the things that I used to use Google for, it doesn't do as well as it used to. And so sometimes I'm kind of like pushed into a corner where I need to use AI to solve a problem that I could have solved previously using Google. So I don't know. Was there any other like specific topics or anything anybody wanted to talk about? Or are we close to the end here?
저는 사실 지금까지 한 얘기랑 좀 많이 상관없는 얘기이긴 한데 그 오늘 그냥 그 각자 LLM 어떻게 사용하는지 그 준비하면서 준비한 얘기가 한 게 있거든요. 근데 이거는 제 주위에서 저처럼 사용하는 법을 본 적이 한 번도 없어서 그 이게 그 상담이랑 좀 연관이 있는데요.
Right.
Okay.
그 막 제 뭐 누나도 제 친누나도 그렇고 친구들도 그렇고 얘기를 하다 보니 챗GPT가 자기한테 너무 친절하고 그리고 자기 얘기를 너무 잘 들어줘서 결국에는 그냥 자기가 힘들 때 뭐 위로가 필요할 때 뭐 그러기 위해 대화 상대가 필요할 때 챗GPT를 사용하는 사람들이 굉장히 많다는 걸 느꼈어요. 근데 그러다가 인공지능과 관련해서 그 뭐 유튜브 보고 뭐 책 읽고 하던 것 중에 바둑 얘기가 있는데 바둑
The
같은 거
game,
알아요?
Go,
Baduk
right?
is
Yeah.
go.
Yeah, go.
맞아요. 그 원래 바둑 그 사람들이 두다가 그 알파고의 등장으로 그 인류가 패배했잖아요.
한 번 이겼죠. 네,
네네 그 이겼죠.
네, 한 번.
근데 근데 그 이후로 AI를 사람이 못 이긴대요.
Hmm.
근데 중요한 건 그 이후로 그 바둑 씬이 바뀌었대요.
Huh.
You're
어떻게
saying
막-
the person or the AI?
아니요. 그 바둑을 어차피 어쨌든 사람들이 두잖아요.
Right.
근데 그 사람들이 그 전문가 바둑 기사들이 바둑을 두는 그 대세 스타일들이 다 바뀌었대요.
It changed a lot because it discovered some new line of play or some new strategy.
No, so
네, 네.
the way that people played changed
네, 네.
because they're
네.
now playing against AI a lot of the time?
네,
Or
그게
why? Yeah.
그 예전에 AI 전에는 그 최강의 바둑 기사는 자기 이전의 고수들의 그 스타일을 연구를 가장 많이 한 사람이
Right.
그 최고가 될 수 있었대요.
Yeah.
근데 그거랑 전혀 상관없는 방법으로 AI가 그걸 다 이기니까
Right.
지금 바둑계에서 바둑을 가장 잘하는 선수는 그 AI 스타일을 가장 많이 연구한 사람이래요.
Wow.
그래서 바둑을 연습하는 플레이하는 그냥 자체가 바뀌어 버린 거죠.
Yeah.
근데 그런 얘기를 그러니까 그 상담식으로 많이 사용한다. 그리고
네.
바둑 씬이 바뀌었다. 이 얘기를 듣고 나니까 앞으로 갈수록 사람들이 챗GPT한테 의지를 많이 하고
Yeah.
대화를 많이 하고 힘을 얻을 텐데 그러면 만약에 사람들이 너무나 챗GPT의 그 대화의 방식에 익숙해진 나머지 그 실제 사람들과의 대화를 힘들어하게 되면 어떡하지? 이런 생각이 드는 거예요.
Right. Or
그래서, 그러면-
maybe they start talking like ChatGPT when they're
네.
trying to make their friends feel better.
예. 정확히 제가 그렇게 생각했어요. 그래서 챗GPT한테 너 그러면 너가 사람들한테 대답하고 그 얘기 들어주는 걸 어떻게 하는지 나한테 좀 교육시켜줘 이렇게
Right.
얘기를 했거든요.
Hmm.
그렇게 하니까 그래서 그걸 물어보니까 알겠다. 그럼 내가 트레이닝을 해주겠다 이렇게 하는 거예요.
Right.
그래서
That's-
뭐 어떤 얘기를 할 때
Yeah.
어떻게 대답을 해야 하냐, 어떻게 반응을 해야 하냐,
Right.
그거를 되게 자세히 알려줘요.
Wow.
Right.
그 먼저 뭐 상황 파악을 뭐 하느냐, 아니면 뭐 해답을 제시해 주느냐, 뭐 감정에 공감을 해주느냐. 근데 이제 그거를 그 자기는 그 사람들 유저들한테 막 시험을 해보면서 어떤 스타일의 대답을 할 때 그 응답이 돌아오는 비율이 뭐 제일 높고 그거를 다 안다고.
Right.
그래서 어떻게 대답해야 되는지를 알려주는 거예요.
So this is fascinating to me because I actually almost never use ChatGPT because I don't like its tone. It's too cheerful. It's too supportive. It's too like it's like a puppy at the end. It's always like, should I do this for you? Should I do this for you? Do you want to know this? How about this? Oh, can you? And it's like it doesn't have anything to do with what I went to ChatGPT with a goal, and I like either I got what I needed or I didn't, and I'm going to ask follow-up questions. I don't need you to graph the data from the weather from Siberia. Like, why would I care? And then the fact that it's always like so cheerful, it's like it makes me so mad that I almost never use it. I almost only use ChatGPT if I've used up all my tokens on the other ones. And I'm like, oh, now I'm out for another 4 hours. I can't use Claude, so I'll go use ChatGPT.
Right. But yeah, what you're saying is really interesting. Is that it's like the tone that people use in general, like in daily life or when they're writing their own thing, can change just because they've interacted with AI enough that they've sort of picked up on those tones.
Yeah.
It kind of makes sense. Like an older example that might be similar is, way before language learning models or stuff like that, like large language models. People started chatting in chat rooms and stuff, and they would use terms like LOL for laugh out loud, right? But then in real life, when you talk to people, you might actually just say lol, like it could be a thing that you say. And so yeah, the phrases you use and like the way that you communicate with people is changed by, the things that you interact with, like in other situations. So yeah, absolutely, people could be talking and writing more like an AI now just because they've used it. Yeah, that's a thing.
Yeah.
It's interesting. But the thing that was like kind of, I don't know if I made a face, but I was starting to get like really scared as I was thinking about like, are artists going to start drawing like the pictures that come out of like ChatGPT or whatever? Is that going to be the new style that a lot of artists use? So it's just like, oh no, like, please no. Anyway.
아, 그 카트리나가 얘기했던 거랑 이거는 좀 결이 다르거든요. 이게 왜냐면 일단 그 챗GPT가 그때 알려준 건 톤이랑은 사실 관련이 없는 거예요.
Yeah. Yeah, it's more about the structure of when, like, what do you focus on?
그렇죠.
How do
그렇죠.
you react? What do you choose to ask more about, etc.
네. 그리고 카트리나가 챗GPT한테 얘기할 때는 대부분 어떤 걸 요청하고 어떤 걸 물어보고 시킬 때잖아요.
That's true. My goal is
네.
different. Yeah.
네. 근데 만약에 그런 목적이 아니라 내가 오늘 이런 일이 있었는데 내가 진짜 잘못한 거야? 나 너무 상처받았어. 이런 말을 하잖아요.
Yeah, I would
그러면
never
그렇게-
ask AI about it.
그러니까요. 근데 만약에 막 그런 상담 질문 같은 걸 하면
Yeah.
절대 밝지 않아요.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not your
네.
therapist. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not like that.
그러니까 그렇게 막
네.
막 치어풀 하지 않고
Yeah.
T 감성이군요. T 감성.
아니요. 그 치어풀 하지 않고 되게 공감을 해주려고 해요. 막 자기가 슬픈 것처럼. 근데 그거를 굉장히 진중하게 합니다. 예, 가벼운 느낌이 아닌데, 진짜 내 얘기를 들어주네? 이런 생각이 들게끔.
Right.
그러니까 이제 그 스타일을 가르쳐 줄 수 있는 거죠.
Right. Which is probably useful. Like a lot of people would benefit from becoming better listeners. Right.
네네. 사실은 저는 제가 나중에 늙으면 젊은 사람들이랑 얘기를 못 할까봐 좀 무서울 때가 있거든요. 그래서 미리 대비하려는 좀 측면도 있습니다.
Yeah.
Yeah.
네. 아무튼 여러분도 관심 있으면 한번 물어보세요.
Yep. Yep.
재밌어요. 준비한 얘기 하나였습니다.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, I think maybe that's all then.
Yeah, I don't have anything else
Yeah.
on my list.
정말 다른 스타일의 AI 사용법들을 얘기해봤습니다.
Yeah.
Yeah, this was fun.
네. 참 AI가 되게 넓은 키워드라서 뭐 AI와 창작, AI와 직업, AI와 인간관계 그렇게 카테고리를 나눠서 하면 좋을 것 같은데 뭐 다음에 또 기회가 되면 합시다.
Yeah, not just that, but it also depends on who you're talking to. Like if you had a different group of people that who are not programmers and gamers, they would have a completely different conversation about it. Like if you bring an artist in here, I'm sure they'll have a lot to say.
Oh,
So
그럴 거예요.
Yeah,
맞아요.
artists, authors.
네,
Music composers.
true.
그렇죠.
My husband
너무-
uses AI to find shortcuts for the production software that he uses, but that's basically and then he'll use like plugins that are using AI in the background. For sure. For parts of his production. But yeah. Yeah, it would be a different conversation for sure.
좋습니다. 보고 계시는 구독자님들 중에도 혹시 나오고 싶으신 분이 있으시면 연락 주시면 저희가 초대해 드리겠습니다. 대신 마이크가 있어야 돼요.
That's right.
네, 자 그러면 뭐 사실 4명이서 하프앤하프씩 대화를 한 게 처음이라 좀 들으시기에 어땠을지는 잘 모르겠어요. 그래도 뭐 다 누구나 처음에는 좀 뚝딱거리지 않습니까?
Yeah, anybody listening, leave comments and, what do you think about this format with 4 people versus 2 people or even the 3-person one we did? Yeah, what do you think? Do you have ideas? If big topics like AI come up again, I think maybe this is a decent format for it because we get a lot of different perspectives. But yeah.
Yeah, I like it.
네, 그렇죠. 혹시 조지님, 카트리나님 또 하실 얘기 없습니까? 마지막으로 조지님부터 할까요?
저는 사실 제 팟캐스트에서 항상 4명이서 하기 때문에 이 포맷이 아주 저에게는 익숙한 포맷인데 사실 거기선 제가 말을 많이 하지 않고 저희 게스트분이 더 말을 하게 하는데 근데 뭐 저는 사실 일단 저 뭐 원래 하프앤하프로 태용님이랑 지프님을 알게 됐고 뭐 카트리나님도 이번에 만나게 돼서 너무 좋았고요. 뭐 또 재밌는 주제가 있으면 저는 언제든지
Yeah.
뭐
And since you came here as a guest,
그렇습니다.
please plug your podcast. Like talk about Quest Unplayed for 1 second. Just say what it is.
네네. 제 팟캐스트 잠깐 소개드립니다. 제 팟캐스트는 저희가 이제 매주 인디게임 개발자분들을, 전 세계에 있는 인디게임 개발자분들을 초청해서 그분들의 이야기를 들어주고 이제 게임에 대해서 약간 이야기하는 그런 팟캐스트입니다. 퀘스트 언플레이드고요. 혹시나 게임에 관심 있으시거나 영어 공부가 필요하시면 한번 구독 부탁드립니다. 퀘스트 언플레이드입니다.
Yeah, it's an
거기는
English podcast.
100% 영어죠.
네, 100% 영어입니다. 100% 영어.
만약에 뭐 영어 공부하는데 게임 좋아한다 싶은 사람이 있으면 딱이겠네요.
뭐 좋습니다. 아주. 네, 완벽합니다.
그렇죠. 이제 카트리나는
Yeah, so yeah, thanks for having me. It was really fun to meet Jeep and George. Like this is my first time actually talking to Jeep and George. It was a pleasure getting to hear your perspectives on this. I hope I didn't dominate the conversation. It's so easy to like just take over and have opinions, and so I hope I made room for everybody.
Yeah, I think we kept it pretty even, and yeah, it's really great to meet and talk to you. Like the episodes that you've been on, I really enjoy those. Like you always have very thought-provoking conversations, and so yeah, it's good to be able to talk directly to you.
Likewise, yeah, thanks.
네. 참 가끔씩 제가 왜 이러고 있나는 생각이 들 때가 있거든요. 나는 왜 포탈의 개발자와 팟캐스트를 하고 있을까? 나는 왜 기터브 출신의 오래된 베테랑 프로그래머와 팟캐스트를 하고 있을까? 내가 왜 어떻게 이걸 하고 있지? 이런 생각이 들 때가 있는데요. 참 감사합니다, 여러분.
Yeah. Never know where life's gonna take you.
참 대단한 분들이 모여 있는 팟캐스트입니다. 조진님까지 포함해서 참 다음에 뭐라도 같이 좀 해보면 좋겠네요.
네, 한국에서 만나는 걸로.
네, 한국에서 또 만나면 좋겠고요. 그러면 이번 시간 4명이서 함께한 하프앤하프였고요. 다음 주에 지프와 저 둘이서 또 다시 돌아오겠습니다. 그럼 저는 지금까지 하프앤하프의 정태용이었습니다. 감사합니다.
And I'm Jeep. This has been Half and Half. Thanks everybody. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time. Bye bye.
Bye bye.